Morning guys, I'm Blackie and welcome back to the channel. Okay, today we are beginning a series, a redo of my earlier works where over the years I've done videos on Canteen Cup Cooking, bush pot cooking, and other forms of cooking. I'm going to redo those and combine it into one playlist. It'll simply be Camp Cooking series total. In part one of this series, we're going to deal with Canteen Cup Cooking. This is going to be focused more for the individual portion for a single person coming out here wanting to be able to, make them something, heat them something up or whatever in the field. Bush pot will then follow it, and that's where we're going to a little bit bigger meals or a little more complex recipes, things like that. And then finally, in the third part, that's where we're going to deal with the bigger cooking, like we're cooking for a family or a group, and we'll go into other cooking recipes I've known over the years in my living history time and things like that, using Dutch ovens and larger pots. Okay? So today, for starting out, and for all of the bush pot, for all of the Canteen series, I'm going to be using a Pathfinder Canteen and Cup set is what I'm going to be utilizing. Now, you do not have to use just this, but since this is so well known, I chose to use it because it's so popular right now. You can also use the old U.S. Army Canteen Cup set or the British Type 58 Crusader set. They'll work. There may be some slight variation in volumes and stuff like that, and you'll have to adjust that. I painted mine black like I said I was going to do, so it's not some special Blackbird edition that somebody asked. No, it's just where Blackie painted it because, as I've said in earlier videos, I paint my stuff. One, to distinguish it from me, and two, to also let me have it, make it a little easier to clean in the field, the soot off of it. Now, let's talk about, this is going to be the most basic, very first one. It's the one a lot of people don't talk about, and that is beverages. Well, that's a no-brainer. It is, but it also requires a little bit of thinking, okay? Now, beverages are going to come down to two types. There's going to be hot beverages and cold beverages. Hot beverages is what we quite often think about, and that's what I'm going to be making in a minute. I'm going to be making me a, this morning we will be making a French vanilla cappuccino instant powder, right out of an MRE set. But there are other options available. So let's begin with the cold option. We want to be able to carry something in the field to change it up where we're not just drinking plain water, okay? Plain water is what we need to sustain life, but at the same time it gets boring in a hurry. So I want something, especially at mealtime if nothing else. I'll drink straight out of the canteen during the day to hydrate, but when it comes to mealtime, I'd like a little something to change it. And you're going to want to carry with you various things to be able to do that with. Now, in the cold way to think of it, because it's a hot day, you want to cool yourself off, there is Tang, Gatorade, tons of these little bitty sachets that come with, you can get today to go into water bottles and things. So this one happens to be something like Gatorade right there. One of those. You've all seen these. These allow me to have a flavor and to add something, a benefit add at a meal. So I can add in, on hot days, potassium, electrolytes, things like that that I may have sweated out, and thus keep me energized and keep me going longer. So like powdered Gatorade, stuff like that. For 45 to 50 years, I have carried powdered Tang, because I come from the days when the astronauts were new and young, and all us kids in America wanted to drink Tang for breakfast because the astronauts drank it. I like the fact that I can make equivalent of orange juice in the field, and therefore it's a boosted breakfast time, gets me going. So quite often my beverage of choice in the morning for around breakfast is going to be orange juice. I may follow it up by a coffee or something if I'm needing to warm up, but I like the orange juice ability. A, for the vitamin C, and B, for the fact it's cool, it gets me going, it's a comfort food as well, okay? Now, for today, we're going to set this up, and I'm going to do it a little bit unconventionally. This is the Pathfinder Stove. Now, I will show you a really good close-up here in a minute, for those of you that don't know. But the typical way that people think of using it is sitting it down like this, and then setting the canteen cup on top of it, and that absolutely does work with a fire. But I'm wanting to utilize this as a windbreak this morning, because I'm using a little Trangia stove. Now, this is the Pathfinder stove. This is the older one that they first brought out. It's a bigger one, and I'll show this up close in a minute, and it came with its own pot stand that sits into the top of it, and it will therefore sit right like that on top of that. I can use it as a windscreen. What I'm using it for right now is a base, letting this stove, as you see, it slides right in there like that, fills that gap right there, and upside down. This gives me a much wider, more stable base in this unstable ground. So I can sit it there, and then gonna be able to sit my canteen cup up here and not have to worry about it tipping over is easy, because I've got a bigger base. Because see, once you slide it in there, it grips it. Okay? Now, you're going to need to do some homework at home, and I didn't get it with me, but I will show you a close-up of it in just a minute. And that is, get you a small notebook. And I want you at home to practice with your canteen cup making various beverages. All you gotta do is just set it up on the stove, right? And so make coffee, or make tea, or make whatever. Practice with it, because it's ratios. How much water for this equals how much I need for that. Now, maybe this was made to make a quart, so I need a full cup, otherwise it's a little too strong. On the other hand, how about if it's a individual coffee sachet like that? Well, one of these will do about a half a cup. If you do a full cup in one of these, it's real watered down. So there's a ratio of how strong I want it to be. So it's how much water. On the inside of the Pathfinder cup, there is a little scale marked up here for how many ounces. Typically, the way I look at it for beverages is 1/4 cup, 1/3 cup, 1/2 cup, 2/3 of a cup, or a full cup, whatever that ratio is. You take your little bitty small notebook, and you say, okay, for my coffee, I want to use my coffee I'm carrying, I need a half a cup, or a third, or a 3/4 cup, whatever it is. That's the reason you practice this at home, and you write it down until you've done it enough, you've got it memorized. You don't have to think about it. Because when you're in the field and you're not using this cup every day, and you're going to make a cup of coffee and you can't remember how much water it was to it, and you make a real diluted down, watery, unsatisfying cup of coffee, or too strong because you didn't put enough water in. See, you've got to learn the ratios. With cold drinks, exactly the same way. How much water to how much of these powders? See, practice this at home. That way, if you go, oh God, no, and you add a little bit more water, or damn, that's really, really weak, you can dash it out in the sink and start over right quick. Practice at home before we come out and therefore figure out exactly what we're doing out here. Now, little tip, if you're using a Trangia stove or whatever and you carry fluid in it, which is fine, right before you take the lid off, give it a good slosh, and that's going to coat and wet the entire top. That way when you unscrew it, it's already primed, it's wet around there, see? And I can set the cap out of the way. Now I just reach over and grab my fire ability. Quick and easy to light that way. And yes, I'm using my new Red Hawk haversack with the zippers in it. Just like that. Making sure everything is good and level. And put in the appropriate amount of water. Now, when using canteen cups on Trangias, always put your handles toward the wind so there's less heat. There's wind blowing across like this. I want my handles facing the wind. The flame is therefore going to be wanting to go to the other side now, won't it? Otherwise, these handles are going to get really hot really quick. This is true of any kind. Now I could set it on there if this was a twig fire, and I will be demonstrating this in a later episode where I'm going to use this stove for a twig fire cooker. And I'm going to set it to hanging so this edge of this wall right here blocks the heat to keep my handles cool where I can use it. Now it's a warm morning, so I'm not wanting boiling hot. I'm just wanting to heat it up a little bit where it's warm. Okay? Having in your kit some sort of spoon that reaches all the way to the bottom of your pot and gives you plenty of handle room. Okay? I want to be able to hold on to this to stir something thick if I'm doing stews and stuff. So make sure whatever utensil you get, and you're going to be carrying as part of your kit, a lot of times it's just a U.S. Army mess kit spoon, a mess spoon that I carry in here. In this case, I've got this little bitty plastic one. And it came as part of a kit. You can find a lot of stuff like this in the various backpacking sets. And it's got a little bitty spatula with it. And again, at the end of the video, I'll show you up close of all of this gear so you can see it better. But this allows me to be able to have something I can stir with, something I can eat with as part of the kit. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's starting to do that ting, 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 ting. It ain't gonna be long for this because this stove is real efficient. And this is gonna heat up in a hurry. I like to heat the water up first, then add in whatever kind of beverage powder I'm utilizing. It seems to work better to me. I'm less likely to burn it because a lot of times you'll put beverage powder in something and it'll actually sink to the bottom. If you don't keep it stirred up, it can actually burn it. I knew a lot of guys that would burn coffee that way because they just throw it in, put the water in it, and then like, well, why does it taste so bad? Because you basically burned it. Before it had a chance to boil, it's burning on the bottom of that cup. Okay. Beyond what you think of coffee, tea, hot chocolate, what other hot drinks are they? There's plenty. Now we'll go over this more closely when we get into the soups and stews that'll be coming up pretty soon. But in the past, a lot of time they would, instead of at a meal serving you just coffee, tea, a lot of times it was a soup that went into the mug. And you'd have a mug of something like chicken broth or some other thin, weak soup to be drunk as a beverage because they were trying to up your calorie intake. And so rather than just giving you coffee or tea, which were flavor and really didn't give you a whole lot, they'd give you a weak soup of some kind to be the beverage. Think miso in Japanese cooking and stuff like that. Or there's several of the Oriental soups that are powdered and become a quick type of thin broth like that. And that might be something you want to consider too, especially on cold days as an accompaniment to a meal, is having something like that. Okay, I believe for what I want, she's more than hot enough now. So, my tare point. And yes, you could just pour it into this. That's what these were designed for the military. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to pour the powder in there. And I'm going to take it and set it off. Give her a little stir. About a half of a cup for me is about right for this. It will do a full cup. I like it a little stronger now. Now, we snuff out the fire. Let that have time to cool down. And we're going to enjoy this. Now, cold beverages like the Tang, the sachets that go into water bottles. If you look in that section where they got flavorings to go into water bottles, sometimes they have those little squeeze things that have a type of syrup or something in it that can do cola, they can do orange, grape, strawberry, all kinds of flavors, lemonade, stuff like that. Those are great on the trail because I could just simply put water in here, squirt it into it, stir it up. Yes, you can do an entire canteen full of it if that's what you're wanting to have your hiking beverage to drink out of. But I prefer to keep the water inside my canteen clean without, because if I decide to change flavors, I got to really, really well clean this to get that extra taste out of it, whatever it is. Certain chemical, which we're talking about beverages, but certain beverages bond to metal better, and you can taste them after it's already gone, so to speak. So that's one of the reasons you see coffee mugs were ceramic. Yes, they were tough and durable, but they didn't take that taste set. So if you had coffee over and over and over again in a tin mug, learn this from living history, or even a stainless steel thing, it'll begin to get kind of seasoned by the coffee, and no matter what you put into it, it tastes kind of like a little bit of coffee. So if you like your chicken noodle soup tasting like coffee, or your poached eggs tasting like coffee, you're good. On the other hand, after a while, you got to really scrub the snot out of that thing to get the taste out of it. So I recommend keeping the water bottle clean inside and use it just for water, and use your cup for this. One, it's very easy to clean it out of, and etc. And you can take the time to just, add a little water, boil, heat it up, scrub it, take a stick and put one of those pot scrubber pads on it and sit there and scrub the inside with really, really hot water and get it back to a clean state, so to speak, if there is some sort of aftertaste that you're beginning to taste and have. All in all, this is the simplest of the bunch, and this will be the least informative, I would say, of all of them. But it's the one thing we don't talk about when we start talking about Canteen Cup Cooking is the beverages. So I can make drinks that are enjoyable, flavors and things like that. I can make drinks that are actually beneficial, like Gatorade, Tang, stuff like that, where I'm trying to have a caloric intake as well as a beverage. On the hot end, I can have coffee for the caffeine, which is an advantage, as well as the taste. I can also do some sort of hot, weak soup to do it with a meal, like miso for example, which you can get powdered miso, making this very easily, to have that to go with the meal. And so I'm trying to warm me up on a cold winter night. Is a distinct advantage to be able to have that to take warmth into me to help bring my core body temperature up. Likewise, I would want to heat this up. Take the lid off and set it up there on a cold night and heat up this whole canteen and have hot water that I could take out and pour in and add to instant coffee or whatever. If I'm gonna be up, I'm on fire watch and I gotta stay up, I could heat this up and just keep this warm on the side of the fire and use that as the drinking cup without having to heat the cup up. You see what I'm saying? And exchange it back and forth. Now, let me show you that close-up right quick, those close-ups, and we'll talk about those things, and then we'll be right back. Okay, remember I told you get a little bitty book. This is one of them little pocket composition books. In it, I've written down all kinds of little bitty recipes. Now this is for a much bigger. This is going to be for Dutch ovens, butch pots, stuff like that. But the thing about it is you get a little bitty thing like this and you record down how to make various things in it. So suppose I figure out how to do a really good job at making spaghetti in a canteen cup, let's say. And I've added pepperoni and I've added this spice and whatever. Write it down so that a year from now and you go, you know, that'd be really good looking through this when I'm trying to come up with a menu and I know how and what to bring. And I can take the little packet like I talked about, like the coffee thing, and know to write on it 1 cup with a Sharpie, or 1/2 cup, or 1/3 cup of water or whatever, so that when I get to the field and I pull it out, I don't have to think about it. Making up one of these for your camp cooking will be very, very useful, because you don't know how far till the Kung Pao chicken, how long is it going to be till I'm going to make that again, or cooking ribs, what else we got in here, beef taters, stuff like that. The whole point is be able to have a reference so that down the line I know how to do it and replicate it again. That's why these little bitty books will be very, very useful for you to get one. Okay, gear breakdown. Okay, that is the Red Hawk haversack. It's the same outside appearance as the Black Hawk haversack. It has 2 snaps at the corners, and inside it has the standard flat pocket, and it has 2 additional pockets right here that are zippered. This one I've got a few sundries in, and this one I've got my little fire kit in. Quick grab fire kit of the lighter and etc. This pocket is fairly deep. This pocket is fairly shallow. Alright, now to the Canteen Cup set. Here is my cappuccino. And as you can see inside, there are these marks right here that allow you to measure how much liquid is inside of it. This is the older Pathfinder stove that had the pot stand. That is the snuffer lid. There it is with fuel in it. It's cool now. Remember, you have to snuff it, or you got to take this seal out. If you snuff it with this seal, you'll melt it, because this will be real hot. And if you snuff it and leave it there for more than just a split second, it's going to melt that O-ring. Once it's cool, like this, where you can do it, you can screw that down, good and snug. Test it, make sure it's not leaking any. Good. And then you have the dampener lid, which can be very useful for a way to cut down on how much you're doing if you want to just simmer. We'll be talking about this more in upcoming videos. And then the pot stand went on it. These have been improved since I got this one. They're a little bit shorter because the depth, if you try to put this underneath there, see, it's a little bit chunky for that. It don't want to go underneath that. But other Trangias will fit up under the small Trangias will fit up under this, and you can use it like I was just doing. But by me taking the stove, they call it, and turning it upside down, with the pot stand off, you can see it just slides in there just perfect like that, and will hold it in place by friction. And so therefore it is a very stable platform to use it that way. This can also be used, and we will do this in upcoming videos. I can build a fire in here and then sit this like this upon it to keep it from getting my handles hot by using this solid wall right here to block the heat, and be able to put a twig fire in there and heat and cook with that. We'll be doing that in an upcoming episode. Then the Pathfinder canteen, you already know, I just, like I said, painted it black, and I painted my cap a different color so I can at a glance tell them that's my unit, and it's not, it looks like everybody else's. Now these caps are really tough and durable, but let me tell you a little story. A friend of mine was in a competition up at Campcraft, maybe 4 years ago now, that I was witness to. I was at that event there in Kentucky, and they were doing that 15-minute challenge where you had to get 2 quarts of a quart of water boiling and a shelter up in 15 minutes. So they had gone and gathered up all their small little twigs and stuff, and at the word go, they created a fire, stuck their canteens into it, and then they ran over and went to setting up a shelter while this is heating up and getting ready to boil. The problem was the competitor forgot to take the cap off of the Pathfinder canteen, and he set it in the fire, and nobody else was paying attention. Well, he had a good conflagration of fire. I mean, it was big, and he's about 8 or 9, 10 minutes in when suddenly that lid went boom and launched off like a 12 gauge. It probably went 75 or 100 feet in the air. They sell replacement lids. It didn't hurt the canteen any, but it did heat that up to the point it couldn't hold the pressure, and it blew it out. So his canteen was okay, but the lid was, flared out, couldn't take the pressure. But they do make replacement canteens, but it didn't hurt the canteen. I was really impressed. I thought it'd bust the canteen, but it didn't. It'd shoot the lid off first. Now my carrier that I'm utilizing is the Woodland Carrier ACU Woodland Camo. Fold the flap down, put it all into there. I've showed this in the past. This little set I picked up at Walmart several years ago. It was cheap, and I'm not sure who actually makes it, but it's a spork, and then it's a little spatula that's got a serrated edge on this side. It's flat, and I like it's flat because it gets to the bottom of a canteen cup real well, that flat bottom, so I can scrape the bottom and get food off the bottom of it. So this is my Canteen Cup carrying set, and it rides inside the carrier. And then, like I showed in earlier videos, there's my lid. This is the heavy lid they don't make anymore. Okay, Pathfinder does make a lid for your cup, so if you're looking for a complete set, you just get the one they make today. It'll work just as good. Mine just a much heavier, and I shined it up to be used as a signaling mirror as well as a heavy canteen lid. Now, the satchels and stuff. I went to my local dollar store, and they had these in the food prep area, where you can get the storage tins and stuff like that. And this is just a handy little, with a seal on it, where I can carry pre-made up coffee, tea, like there's tea, sugar, stuff like that pre-made in here. Now also you may want to look up, there is little bitty small containers that they sell in these same type of areas. Sometimes you'll find them around crafts. And it's a little cup about this big with like a Tupperware lid on it that seals onto it. I got some of those for my wife because, remember, we're going to experiment with at the house. You're going to take your cup and you're going to set it on the stove at the house, and you're going to find out how much water to coffee. Well, the coffee you use at home every day, your favorite one, if you get those little containers like that with that snap lid, I can figure out it's so much coffee, so much creamer, so much sugar, and mix them up together and put into that little thing and make up my own carry coffee sets, so that I know a half a cup of this or a full cup of this to that, so you can make your cup of coffee like you want. All you've got to do is pre-measure the stuff at home and then carry it with you, so that I know that when I pull this out, it's 1 cup of water boiling, I pour this into it and stir it, and I got a great cup of coffee. That's the easy way to do it in the field. Okay. In short, you're going to want to come up with some small little container like I showed to keep beverages in, because that way I can keep ants out of it, etc. It's an easy thing for me to grab right out of my pocket, right out of my haversack, or whatever kit I'm carrying. On the side of the carrier right here are pockets that I can put in a Ziploc bag or some small bag and slide in there to keep them waterproof if whatever packaging they're in is not naturally waterproof, and have those on the side of my carrier right here. So, to recap, for beverages, experiment at home. Get your little book and figure out what all the ratios are of how much water, how much powder for whatever given combination. Write it down so that you can memorize it, remember it, if you're not doing it every day. Like I said, if you're going to do miso once in a blue moon, you may forget how much water was supposed to go with it. Either take the little packet that you're going to do it and write it on it with a Sharpie how much water to go with it. That saves you a lot of effort. Or have that little book so I've got something to reference back to. Okay? Next, carry your beverages safely. Keep your water bottle clean. Do not put this into the fire with the lid on it, as I stated. Don't be afraid to use the components unconventionally a little bit, like this. And don't be afraid to experiment with various ways of doing it. Now, if you guys are super into coffee and you want to roast your own coffee beans right there in the field, yes, you can do that in a Canteen Cup. But to be honest, I would recommend the French press that they've got at Pathfinder for those coffee hogs out there that are real connoisseurs. That would be a better way, so you could put those grounds and press the grounds down and have that coffee. They already make that because Dave and them are big into coffee. And so therefore, that might be something you want to do. Now, I'm going to sit here and enjoy my French vanilla cappuccino. I hope this video was helpful for you and was a little bit insightful. Yes, this is the simplest of the simple. We will, in the next video, be starting on actual soups and things like that. We're actually going to start cooking soup and stews and things like that. We're going to gradually get big, more and more. We might actually start with immersion heating. That'd be better. We'll do immersion heating in the next video to talk about how we can take pre-made stuff from home, bring it to the field, and heat it up in the field in a Canteen Cup. Hope you'll tune in for that. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.